So for this deep dive, we're digging into Stephen Schwartzman's book, What It Takes, Lessons in the Pursuit of Excellence. And our mission here isn't just to, read a biography.
No, that's not the point. We're here to pull out the algorithm. Schwartzman's whole argument is that excellence is not something you're born with. It's a system. The book is basically a blueprint for turning failure into a machine that prevents future failures.
Okay, so let's go back to the beginning, the source code. He didn't start out on Wall Street. He started in his father's linen store in Philadelphia.
At 10 years old, folding handkerchiefs.
And this is where you first see the divergence in his thinking. Because even as a kid, he's looking at the big picture.
Right. He sees the suburbs expanding. He sees the baby boom. He basically comes up with the idea for Bed Bath & Beyond decades before it existed.
And he goes to his dad and says, we should expand. We could be a national chain.
And his dad shuts him down. But it's the reason why that's so important.
Yeah, it wasn't because it was a bad idea.
No. His father just said, I'm a happy man. We have a nice house, 2 cars. We have enough. He chose contentment over potential.
And that taught Schwartzman that entrepreneurship is this fire from within. You can't teach someone to be ambitious if they're already satisfied.
Which leads to this rule that he lives by, this mantra.
Oh, I love this one. It is just as easy to do something big as it is to do something small.
It sounds like a platitude, but he means it in a very practical way.
Well, think about it. If you want to start a small local business, you need funding, you need a team, you need a marketing plan.
All of it.
And if you want to start a global company, you need the exact same categories of work. Both will absolutely consume your life. Both involve insane amounts of stress.
Exactly. The suffering is almost identical. So his logic is, if you're going to go through all that pain anyway, you might as well chase a dream that's actually worth the effort.
He tests this out in high school. He's student council president. He doesn't want some lame school dance. He decides he wants Little Anthony and the Imperials.
Who were huge at the time. I mean, legitimate chart toppers.
And he has zero budget. Nothing.
Right. Most people would just give up, book a local garage band.
But Schwartzman just gets on the phone. He calls agents, managers, venues. He just sort of wills this concert into existence by refusing to take no for an answer. And they actually came and played.
It's that reality distortion field. But, ambition is only one part of it. The book talks a lot about resilience.
Through this metaphor of his time as a track runner.
Yeah, under this coach named Jack Armstrong. And this was not a feel-good, everyone gets a ribbon kind of coach.
No.
Yeah.
He describes these brutal winter workouts in icy parking lots where he would literally throw up from exhaustion every single day.
And there's this one story where he rips his hamstring in the middle of a relay race.
The same thing to do is stop, right? Prevent permanent damage.
Of course, but he keeps going. He finishes his leg of the race, limping in absolute agony.
So why is that story in the book? Is it just trying to sound tough?
I don't think so. He calls it making deposits of hard work. The idea is you build up this tolerance for pain, this reserve of suffering.
So you can make a withdrawal later.
Exactly. When a deal is collapsing at 2 a.m. or the market is crashing, you draw on that account. If you haven't built up that resilience, you just fold under pressure.
And he needed that resilience pretty fast, especially when he tried to get into Harvard.
Oh, that was something else. He gets waitlisted, and his response is, well, it's aggressive.
He calls the dean of admissions from a payphone with a pocket full of quarters.
And tells him straight up, You're making a mistake. I'm going to be very successful, and you'll be glad you accepted me.
What did the dean say?
Basically, thanks for the call, and then rejected him anyway.
But that's the lesson, right? You can have all the drive in the world and still fail.
You have to accept it and move on. So he goes to Yale instead. And he gets there, and he's not just a student. He's trying to engineer the environment.
You're talking about the no women in the dorms rule.
Right. Yale was all male, and there was this 268-year-old rule that women couldn't stay overnight. Schwartzman felt the campus was lonely, so he just decided to change the rule.
But not with a protest.
No, with data. He was much smarter than that. He creates a survey, gets a nearly 100% response rate from students who all hate the rule, and he just hands the results to the administration.
He basically said, here's the proof your policy is a failure.
And the rule was gone in 3 days. It's about using information to clear the path for what you want.
Which takes us to Wall Street. He ends up at Lehman Brothers, which he calls a feudal castle.
A pretty toxic place, from his telling.
Yeah.
A lot of infighting, backstabbing. But he learned about the real cost of mistakes there.
The story with Eric Gletcher?
Yeah. Schwartzman makes a calculation error in a pitch book, a $20 million mistake or something, and his boss doesn't mentor him. He just looks him in the eye and says, if you ever do that again, you're fired.
That fear seems to become a huge motivator for him. Eventually, he teams up with Pete Peterson to start Blackstone.
And it's the perfect partnership. Pete is the statesman with the relationships. Steve is the deal guy, the grinder.
They start the firm with $400,000.
And they send out 400 letters to announce they're open for business. The typical response rate for something like that is, what, 1 or 2%?
They got 0.
Not one phone call. It was that moment in the rain outside MIT all over again. The reputation they had didn't translate into business. They were just burning through cash.
Until the CSX deal. The book frames this as their big breakthrough.
It was. But it wasn't a normal deal. It was a hostile takeover situation. A corporate raider was blocking the deal, trying to get paid off.
And the big banks wouldn't touch it. Too messy, too much risk.
Right. But Schwartzman digs into the legal details and finds a loophole. I won't get into the weeds of securities law, but he basically figured out a way to structure the deal that legally froze the raider out.
So he couldn't block it anymore.
He had to either sell his shares at the market price like everyone else or be stuck with worthless stock. They completely outmaneuvered him.
So the lesson there is,
the harder the problem, the less competition you have. If you're willing to take on the terrifying deals everyone else runs away from, you can write your own ticket.
But that success led to arrogance. And that led to the Edgecombe disaster.
This is maybe the most important part of the entire book. This is the pivot point.
So they invest in a steel company, Edgecombe.
Right. One partner is just in love with the deal. Another partner, David Stockman, looks at the numbers and warns them off it. Says the timing is all wrong.
And Schwartzman let it go through anyway.
Yeah, he deferred to the passionate partner. He didn't want to create conflict. And then steel prices cratered. The company was nearly worthless.
And he ends up in a meeting with an investor who is just screaming at him, calls him an incompetent imbecile.
He said he was fighting back tears. It was a total breakdown moment.
But here's the key. Most people would just try to bury a memory like that.
He did the opposite. He dissected it. He realized the problem wasn't the steel market. The problem was their process. They were a collection of individuals, not a system.
And that's where constructive confrontation comes from.
Exactly. He creates a new rule. No single person can greenlight a deal. All investment ideas have to be circulated 2 days in advance.
And in the meeting, everyone's job is to attack it.
Yes. From the most junior analysts to the senior partners, your job is to find the flaw in the argument. It's not about being negative. It's about depersonalizing the risk analysis.
So it's not an attack on the person, it's an attack on the idea.
Precisely. And that system, that information machine, is what saved them later on.
In 2007, the story of the EOP deal is, frankly, unbelievable.
Yeah, the equity office properties deal. $39 billion. The biggest leveraged buyout in history. They were buying a huge portfolio of office buildings right at the peak of the market.
Which sounds like a catastrophically bad idea, knowing what we know now.
It would have been fatal. But his internal machine was flashing warning signs. His team in India is reporting that land prices are up 10 times. His team in Europe sees a bubble in Spain.
So he connects the dots and realizes a global credit crisis is coming.
So why buy the buildings at all?
Because he wanted the best ones, the prime assets. But he needed to get rid of the risk immediately. So he makes this insane demand.
He insists that they sell off about $30 billion worth of the less desirable properties.
On the same day they close the purchase?
On the same day? I mean,
sure.
Can you imagine the logistics? You have to line up buyers for $30 billion in assets that you don't technically own yet.
It's an operational nightmare.
Absolutely. But they did it. The second the ink was dry on the purchase, they were signing the documents to sell off the majority of it. They shed the risk just before the entire market collapsed.
If they'd held on for just a few more months.
Blackstone probably wouldn't be here today. It's that simple.
And then, while the rest of the world was on fire in 2008, Blackstone started buying.
Because crisis is opportunity if you have cash. They bought Hilton Hotels. The media killed them for it. Said they overpaid at the top of the market.
And for a while, it looked like they had.
It did. But they're a private equity firm. They don't live and die by quarterly reports. They saw a great brand with bad management and too much debt. They fixed the debt, they fixed the operations, and they just waited.
And when they finally sold, they made a $14 billion profit.
The single most profitable private equity deal in history.
It wasn't just big companies, though. They basically invented a new asset class with invitation homes.
Right. After the crash, the banks were stuck with thousands of foreclosed single-family homes. The market was completely broken. So Schwartzman's idea was, well, let's just buy them. All of them.
Which sounds crazy. I mean, how do you manage 50,000 separate rental homes? Who fixes the leaky faucets?
That was the problem. No one had ever done it at that scale. So they built a company just to handle the logistics. They spent billions buying houses on courthouse steps, fixed them up, and created the professional single-family rental industry.
Okay, so let's distill this. For you listening to this, trying to apply these ideas, what are the key takeaways?
I think there are three main pillars. The first is that worrying is active.
Explain that. Because anxiety is supposed to be bad.
Passive anxiety is bad.
Hmm.
Just feeling sick with worry is useless. But active worrying is a tool. You use it to map out every single possible thing that could go wrong.
What if this happens? What if that person quits?
All of it. You list the downsides, and then you create a plan to defend against each one. You worry so you don't get caught by surprise.
Okay. Pillar number 2.
Hire only 10s. He has this rating system. A 7 or 8 does the job you give them. A 10 sees a problem you didn't even know you had, figures out a solution, and implements it without being asked.
How do you even find those people?
He looks for people who have created something from nothing before, and he uses what he calls the airplane test. If you were stuck on a tarmac next to this person for 3 hours, would you be engaged or would you want to jump out the emergency exit?
And the third pillar.
Treat information as your most valuable asset. You have to be a constant collector of data points from everywhere. He talks about reading Freud while working on an oil tanker as a kid.
Wait, he worked on an oil tanker?
Summer job. But the point is, you never know where the crucial insight is going to come from. That warning about the housing bubble didn't come from a spreadsheet. It came from a few stray comments in a Monday morning meeting.
So it all comes back to that image of him in the rain. He wasn't necessarily the smartest or the luckiest.
No, he was the one who built the best system. He took the pain from his failures and used it to engineer a process that filters out human error.
So here's the final thought for you. Schwartzman's advice is to codify your mistakes. Don't just try to forget them.
Yeah, write them down. Analyze what went wrong with the process, not just the outcome.
So ask yourself this. What is the edgecomb moment in your life? That one big failure that still stings? And have you actually built a rule or a system to make sure it never happens again?
Or are you just crossing your fingers and hoping for better luck next time? Luck isn't a strategy.
And that's the real lesson. Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you on the next one.